Cool. Okay, welcome. Hello. It is June, and we are doing June's free masterclass training today. I am going to start by introducing myself. My name is Alicia Turner. I'm a certified holistic confidence coach. I have my own practice where I'm currently offering general life coaching, which means I can help anyone on any problem, and it's so much fun. So I'll tell you more about that jazz at the end of this training. But for now, we are talking about how to solve any relationship problem with the model. We're talking about relationship problems and why they're such a bummer and a time suck. So, what you will be learning today is just what I said, how to solve any relationship problem. And as a result of this training, you will free up so much time and energy for yourself by choosing to solve these problems now and forevermore. That way, you will start building back this capacity to create the things in your life and the relationships in your life that you actually want to have. Because when we're maxed out with problems and issues, we don't have the energy to actually go do those things. So, I'm going to start off with some examples of common relationship problems. So, these are just some I've either heard from my clients or experienced myself or just completely made up for fun. So, a family member keeps making comments to you at gatherings and it triggers you, triggers your past trauma. You're trying to heal from it. And so you feel like you can't heal because they keep ripping open these old wounds. There's another example. Your spouse lied about something or has been acting a little shady lately. And now you want to punish them and retaliate because you've started to question them and not trust them. You've started to feel mistrust. Another one is you feel disconnected from someone you want to feel connected to. And the reason you feel disconnected is because they won't listen. They won't talk to you. They won't spend the quality time with you that you want to have with them. And so you keep trying to think of ways to connect, but because they're not changing their behavior, you feel like it's impossible. Another common example is a friend of yours made a really rude comment and then just tried to brush it off as a joke and then told you not to take it so seriously, but it really hurt your feelings and you can't just let it go. You're not really getting over it like you'd like to be. Another one is a colleague at work. It's always super negative, is always complaining about things, and even can act like a bully to you sometimes. And so, because of this, they are the number one reason that you are so frustrated, you're so frazzled, not only at work, but it's starting to bleed into your personal life. And last one, or actually, there's a few more, which this is good. We want to touch all bases and see how all of these problems can be put into the model. So, we're going to do that in just a bit. So, your boss has it feeling like you have to walk on eggshells because they're struggling with something and you never know when they might freak out at you. So you feel tense, uncomfortable, and like if you make one wrong move, you're going to ruin both of your days and you're living in that fear a little bit. A common one is children's behavior. If your kids are misbehaving, if they're straight up ignoring you, if they're acting out more and more, and you keep trying to get them back under your control, but everything you do, they just get worse. That's a really common relationship problem. Another one is a significant other won't listen to you when you're asking them to do things like, hey, can you take out the trash? And then you get pissed when they don't do what they said they'd do. They'll say, I will, but then it doesn't get done. And then you use that evidence of them not taking the trash out. This is one of the examples I use, so it's fresh in my mind. To be upset, right? To create a problem in your life, in your relationship. Lastly, your significant other isn't making you feel loved and appreciated and secure like they once used to. And so you want them to start putting in more effort, going that extra mile so it can start to feel like it did before. I see that one a lot as well. These are the kind of problems we tend to gossip to each other about. We'll call our friends, we'll spill the tea. We try to combine as many brains as we can sometimes to solve for a relationship problem. We're like, let's get more people in here, let's get more opinions. What should we do? What shouldn't we do? And we'll have such a strong urge to vent to literally anyone who will listen. And I experience this as a very like energetically safe person. I go out in public and strangers will just want to vent to me. They sense that I'm like a good listener and they want to capitalize on that. They're like, let me get these problems off of me because I don't know what to do with them. And so we don't know how to manage these thoughts and feelings about relationship problems until we're taught how to do that. And that's what we're doing today. And so I'm choking on my spit. Everything we do or don't do just becomes a band-aid. It's a temporary solution, and the problem will always return, like inevitably. That's what we're doing when we're not learning how to manage our thoughts and feelings around these problems. I think a big reason our problems in relationships continue to return and resurface is because there are a lot of us out there that seem to be 100% certain that we aren't to blame at all, right? It's never our fault. It's all these other crazy people's fault. That's why we're so frustrated. It's because of them. We aren't causing the problem, obviously. We're over here trying to solve the problem. How could we be causing it? That's impossible. But you may be surprised at what I have to offer to you today. You might change your mind a little bit about who is causing problems and who is not. Might surprise you. So stay tuned. From this place, we are never solving the problem. When we approach it as if we're no part of the problem, right? How could it be? Impossible. We never solve the problem here because we are dealing with real humans in these dynamics, and we'll never be able to solve for another person's humanity, for who they are, how they act. We cannot control people. We can't even predict what they'll do, no matter how much we try. We can't stop them from behaving how they're going to behave. And yet we spend all of our time and our energy attempting to do just that when it comes to relationship problems. We're putting our focus where it's just running the drain out. And so we get really worked up in this process. We try to figure out how to do it. We're like, I'm so close. I can feel it. Let me try this other manipulation tactic. Let me lay on the guilt. And I think it will really work this time. They will really change. When instead of doing that, something that doesn't work and will never work, we could be spending our time focused on something that's actually productive, like solving the root of this relationship problem by using the model. And then feeling better immediately where you are without having to have someone change first. And then the next time this problem comes up, you'll know how to navigate it because you've already done it, and it'll be easier and it'll be over faster. And so I will say this before we move on. The number one way I see people limiting their own potential and stunting the full possibility of their life is by making sure they are always distracted by some kind of trivial relationship problem. They're not even realizing that this is a subconscious excuse to never have to become who they really know they can be. If you're watching the replay, I want you to just pause and rewind and listen to that again. Okay. All right. So let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. We are just figuring out how to solve the types of problems I just mentioned once and for all. That's what we're doing here today. If you have a desire to become who you've always wanted to be and to stop making excuses for your life, then you will have to go to my website and book an official consult with me for that, because that's going to take more than just one training. Okay. Website is going to be linked in this show note. So I hear you all asking, how do we do it? And can it really be that easy? The model, which is the concept I'm teaching you today, it does solve all of our problems, not just relationship problems, but every problem there could ever be for all time. And so it is really simple. That's nice. It is simple, but it's not always easy. And that's because our brain and our ego working together both want to hang on to our problems for dear life. They never want to let our problems go because they don't want to change. Change to our brain feels as threatening and unbearable as someone trying to break into our house. And so we have to know how to navigate and work with our brains, especially when it comes to solving relationship problems. And the model helps with doing that, it helps significantly. So, first and foremost, the model is a self awareness tool. It is meant to be used for you, not against you. And it's perfect to start practicing using it in relationships. That's the perfect place to start. And so, with this tool I'm about to give you, please don't use it to judge yourself. Don't use it to try to rush and change yourself into someone else. I'm giving you something very powerful today. And usually I only give it to paying clients who I know will have my guidance the entire time. So please promise me you will be nice to yourself after you learn this. Do you promise? Okay. Okay, so here's how this is going to go. I'm going to explain the model, and then I'm going to show you how to use the model to solve any relationship problem. And if there's any questions, I can answer them at the end. So just type them in the Q&A box, or if you're watching the replay, just type it in the comment section. So let's start. Got my chart. All right, let's make sure you can see that. So we have here 5 categories, right? 5 little sections. They are the circumstance, the thought, the feeling, action, and result. So let me explain this to you. I want you to think of this model as a microscope, okay? You're zooming into one tiny piece of the whole, right? We're never trying to stuff an entire beach of sand under a simple table microscope. I took geology in college. You are grabbing one tiny sample of sand and you're zooming into that tiny sample. And the closer look helps us understand that entire beach. Okay, so we don't have to put the whole beach under there to really gain this awareness. So what we're doing is breaking down our life into the tiniest bite-sized pieces, and you're evaluating it, right? With intention and to better understand it. Okay. We fear what we don't understand. I wish more people understood this. And when we are confused, our emotions get super big and high, and our intelligence goes super low. And so I want you to think of it. Think of this model as easily and as neutrally as you would look at some sand under a microscope. Whatever you're putting in here, it's just some sand. We're just checking it out. We're just seeing what's there. You are observing it and asking some questions. You aren't making what's under the microscope a problem or a reason to beat yourself up. So please heed my advice here, because as a human who makes mistakes, I have done everything I'm telling you not to do. So trying to prevent some pain here. So let's start with the circumstances, okay? We take one circumstance at a time and we write down only the facts of that situation, right? We're not putting a chunk of our life under the microscope, one situation, one moment at a time, and you're writing only the facts. Some of y'all don't know what a fact is, okay? And that's another reason why coaches exist. We are experts at separating out what a fact is. We know how to make it neutral, and we separate it from our story. The story is the part that we weave into the facts. We're interpreting facts and we're weaving them with story. And so it's good to know facts are always kind. and they are never the cause of how we think and feel. They're just existing in reality. And so if it doesn't exist in reality, you ain't putting it in this part of the model. Okay. So blue hair would go in the fact line because it exists. That person has blue hair. That's real. But awesome blue hair wouldn't go in the fact line because not everyone in the world might agree that it's awesome. Awesome is subjective, and so is every other adjective that exists. So go ahead and throw away your dictionaries, because even though you think you know what awesome means, it's going to mean something different to the next person. And this is true for every word. And that's okay, right? We're not on earth to force everyone to agree with each other, to play by the same rules, to be the same person. That's not our purpose here. Our human purpose is to have a full and rewarding experience. And that includes all these parts of the model, right? The good, the bad, the ugly. So the exact words that someone said could go in the fact line, right? That could be proven, like they said those words, but not what you made those words mean, right? That doesn't go in the fact line, only the words that were said. And so everything on your to-do list, right? If you're writing out what you need to get done this week, that could go in the fact line. Got to pick up the dry cleaning, got to write a paper. But saying I have a busy week ahead does not go in the fact line, because busy is one of those subjective terms. It's a mental concept that means something different to everyone. Busy to one person is not busy to the next. So I'll have plenty of examples in just a bit on how to put the facts of a relationship problem into the model, because so many of my clients will totally comprehend the model. They'll be like, I get it, done. But when it comes to our personal relationships, we will forget what a fact is. And that's normal. That's why coaches have coaches, right? I just signed up for 6 months with my amazing coach, and they are going to kick my ass in the best way when my brain tries to tell them, no, this is a fact. They're going to be like, no, honey, no, it's not. So next up is thoughts, which we've already kind of touched on. But the most important part to know here is thoughts are optional. Any thought your brain offers you, we know it's not true. It's the story, because if it was true, it would be up here in the fact line, right? It's not true. It's the story, and it's optional. We have the freedom to think and believe anything we want. And right now, our thoughts are our opinions, our unique interpretation, our stories about who we are and how the world works. And I don't think we've put in much thought to our thoughts yet, because we haven't been trained on how to think on purpose. We haven't nurtured this skill and built this thinking muscle in our lives yet. We've just taken what we've been told and then delegated all of that to our subconscious. And now we're what I call a lazy thinker. And so we start to believe from this lazy thinking place that our thoughts are just happening to us, that we have no say in them, we can't control them, that they're all true, right? They all feel so true. And I'll tell you why in just a second. And they come out of left field, right? Our thoughts just wipe us out. And then we have this excuse for our thoughts to complain and groan and mope for another 6 months and not get anything done in our life, right? This is what thoughts do when they're out of your control. So our thoughts really are happening to us in a sense, though, but that doesn't have to mean we can't do something about it. But where thoughts come from, where they originate, it's multifaceted. It's going to come from our socialization and our conditioning, where we grew up, who raised us, what they taught us, what they told us about how the world works. And there's also going to be this implicit and explicit messaging in our society from the structures we live under. We live under patriarchy. We've lived under sexism, capitalism, white supremacy for centuries, whether we like it or not. That shit goes in the fact line. And that messaging is internalized, whether we are aware of it or not. It's fascinating. And so we've been unconsciously receiving these stories, and we're honestly fed them as though they are facts, but they're not. And so we have so much freedom here that we're not utilizing. And then last but not least, our thoughts come from our past, right? They come from our memories. Oftentimes, when people decide what they can do in the future, they look to their past, like, oh, well, this is what I did in the past and I couldn't do it. So that means I can't do it in the future. Nothing has ever been more untrue. Okay, but I can't talk about that. Focus, Alicia. Okay, so our brain stores information in this story form, right? It's kind of beautiful. That's why we can tell such enticing stories. We can get so caught up in details, and it's lovely, but it becomes a nightmare, a horror film, when your brain continues to weave stories that are full of half truths and pseudo facts and aren't serving you or your current life and aren't helping you be who you want to be. So we want to change these stories on purpose. They can still be beautiful. They can still be, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. But we do them on purpose. We create them on purpose. And so all of these factors have established our current neural pathways, right? All of these old thought sources. And they are what determine the thoughts we currently think on a day-to-day basis. So most of our thoughts are so automatic, so subconscious, we don't even realize our decision here. It's like a big scam, right? We don't realize we get to decide what we want to think. And this part is vital. How you choose to think is an everyday decision. No, you might not be able to change what you thought in the past and change where you are right now, but how you choose to think today in this moment is a decision. And what you think about any given circumstance, any fact, any part of reality is a choice. And so you should care about your thoughts, because whatever you choose to think will create how you feel. So a feeling is a one-word emotion, just one. It's a completely harmless vibration. Everything from elation to sorrow is a harmless vibration in your body. It's just different frequencies. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. It's like measuring the frequency of your voice. When you're screaming and doing crazy shit, different frequency than when you're whispering and doing this. Same with your emotions. That's about as neutral as it is. And so it's important because I don't believe we've ever been taught that we create all of our emotion. I don't think anyone told me this. And I think for a long time, I believed other things cause my emotion. In fact, I was encouraged to believe that. You're a child in first grade and your teacher says, you hurt Timmy's feelings. So you need to apologize to Timmy, like you're responsible for his feelings. But we create all of our emotion. It's not what's happening in the world outside of us that creates our emotion. It's not the facts of any situation that makes us feel or not feel something. It is our thoughts that we are choosing in the moment that do that always. And you should care about what you're feeling, because the way you're feeling will determine how you show up. It'll determine your behavior. And so the feelings are what drive our action. This is the specific way we show up in the world when we're thinking and feeling a certain way. It's how you're treating other people. It's how you're treating yourself. It's whatever you do or don't do. Because how you behave, the action, the inaction, right? Action you're not taking in your daily life is what determines your results. And your results are just the evidence in the reality now of what you have decided to think. Okay? So the results I have today are evidence of the thoughts I thought in my past. Does this make sense? It's kind of trippy. It's a little bit trippy. But like the result of my business today, me talking to you on the screen, is evidence for the thoughts I chose to think a year or more ago. I want to start a business. I want to become a life coach. I am now living in the evidence of the thought I chose. Had I been thinking, I can't do it, that's too hard, I'll never figure it out, I wouldn't be having this result today. I wouldn't be talking to you. I'd be serving beer. There you go, sir. Right? So your results are the evidence of the thoughts you have decided to think. Okay. So this is always proving that it's a little evidence machine. And so when people tell me changing your thoughts doesn't work and I can't do this, and then they find evidence for that, see, changing your thoughts doesn't work. I'm like, well, of course it doesn't work when you tell yourself it doesn't work. So we are creating our results, not our parents, not our bosses, not our spouses, not our jobs. We are, by what we choose to think in any given moment. So when you look at the results you have in the model, it shows you very clearly what you're thinking, what you're choosing, the decisions you're making. And then the cool part about this, from this place of awareness, you can decide if you want to keep choosing that. Moving forward, can't change your results of today, but you can change the results of tomorrow. And so if you like your reasons for choosing it, or if you want to drum up a different thought to start practicing, that's your choice. That's your freedom. So this tool is pretty straightforward, but if you haven't at least heard of this before, heard me talk about it before, it can be a little overwhelming. So I made a model for it. Let's check it out. All right. So Alicia is teaching me about the model. That's a fact. You're here. I'm talking to you virtually. What's up? Your thought. This is too much to take in all at once, right? Something along those lines. I've had clients say that to me and I'm like, all right, let's look at this, right? Let's break it down. And so a thought, this is too much, that's going to make you feel overwhelmed. And when you feel overwhelmed, how do you show up, right? What do? We have the urge to look at our phone and stop paying attention to this video. We want to stop focusing on what Alicia's saying and decide we better be doing something else with our time right now. We never learn how to solve our problems, our relationship problems, and we don't learn the model. And so what's the result of that thought? Whether we're seeing it now or a week from now, it's that we don't receive this value. We stay overwhelmed and our problems remain. So this is a really nice model. I want you to look at it. It has only facts in the circumstance line. It's not saying Alicia's being really overwhelming. It's just Alicia's teaching about the model. It has one thought only, not a paragraph of opinions, right? We're microscoping. We're not putting the whole beach under there. One thought. And so it has one feeling that matches the thought. It's not a mixed match. We want to make sure our thought is always matching the feeling. We don't think I love my life and then feel depressed. That's a mixed model. And it has the behavior you're exhibiting in this specific situation. Maybe sometimes in other situations when you feel overwhelmed, you'll do something a little different, but in this situation, this is exactly what you're doing. And finally, it shows you the result of this thought. What is this thought creating for you? What is the evidence of what you're creating when you choose it? So taking in information, that's just a choice. It's not a fact of reality. It's not something you have to do or don't have to do or should do it a certain way or should do it in a certain amount of time. So when we think and we tell ourselves this information is too much, we decide in that moment it's too much, right? It's a decision. It doesn't make the material objectively too much and you're just observing reality. No, reality's over here just chilling. You're overwhelmed. So it's our experience in that moment, overwhelm, because of what we're thinking. So I want to show you, it's not this video of me talking to you right now that makes you feel overwhelmed. It's the thought you're having that is making you feel overwhelmed. And it's not learning about the model that makes you want to tune out and distract yourself and grab your phone. It's this feeling you're having in your body, this vibration that's currently present, that's compelling you, driving you to stop paying attention and pacify yourself, right? Get back to comfort. Conserve your energy. This is painful, but Alicia teaching the model is not painful. It's neutral. Your thought is what causes that pacifying behavior. So I like to even, for my clients, I wrote here, I like to make it sound even more neutral. Like there's a virtual human in your computer making noises through the internet. That doesn't make you feel overwhelmed. Your thought, your thinking, and about this information is what's making you feel overwhelmed. And so it's the thought that's too much. It's the thought that actually keeps you from ever taking in and solving these problems that you really want to solve. This thought is what is keeping you stuck in this pattern of overwhelm, not the video, not the nice, friendly coach. All right, so this is true 100% of the time in any situation. I welcome any challenge. I really like the practice. My mom does this all the time. She's like, no, what if someone's talking in a movie theater and they're being annoying? That's a fact. And I'm like, all right, let's talk about it. So I wanted to add one more visual before we move on to just kind of help this sink in. This is probably going to be one of my longest master classes, but I don't care. It's really good. So this is really small, but this is a P and an O, and this says peace/reality. Okay. I made it small because I just want you to see the visual, right? Okay. So this is our perception of reality. This is where we're standing. You could see maybe a little stick figure here. That's us. It's where we're looking out. And the O is the object of reality. So it's just what we're looking at. It's reality. And so this has all of our senses working together at once to interpret the O. That's what our senses are wired to do. We're like, okay, is this good, bad, right, or wrong? What box can I put this in? How can I explain this to myself? It's a lot. And so that's why things like meditation exist. So we can just spend time observing reality exactly as it is without a story. So when we don't have any thoughts about the object of our reality, we are clear. Okay, this state is always available to you. I don't know if you know this. This is emotional peace. This is complete neutrality, freedom, enlightenment, whatever the fuck you want to call it. When you don't have stories or boxes or moral judgments blocking you, you have peace. You can just see things the way they are. You're free, right? It's just emotional freedom here. And this is the result of not having any untrue thoughts or stories standing in the way of your peace. Untrue thoughts are the number one cause of our suffering, and we are in control of them. So we are the ones hanging on to them or letting them go in any moment. And if peace is what you really want, you have to learn how to see reality as it is first. This has to come first. You have to clear this before you can start making decisions on the path to who you want to be, right? And so the only time we ever want to put anything in between us and the object of our reality is when we've chosen and vetted some amazing thoughts to think on purpose. Thoughts that are powerful and inspiring and make us feel good and make us show up in ways that we're proud of. That is what this experience is all about. And so look what happens when you start letting untrue thoughts that don't serve you and you put them in between you and reality. This says untrue thoughts, and it's just like a force of untrue thoughts you're projecting onto reality. Okay, and then you can't see shit. Everything's unclear, everything's confusing, and it's a little chaotic. It's like you're in the dark. You don't know what's real and what's not real. You don't make good sound decisions from this place. You feel like you're in chaos. And so when we're in chaos and we're making decisions, we're actually creating more chaos for ourselves. And this is a nasty cycle. Okay, so this just reinforces our feeling of out of control, and we're finding more evidence for it everywhere. And then it feels impossible to get out of. We slip into this trance that we really are at the effect of reality. But like I said, this is always available to us. And no, we're not. We're creating reality with what we put in between us and the object of our attention. And so the P, our perception here is the thought line, okay, in the model. And the O is the circumstance. So I don't mean to confuse it. I drew this exact figure in a notebook years ago before I ever learned the model and became trained as a coach. So I wanted to offer you both of these visuals to help you grasp this. I knew I didn't want to take any more shit from my thought line a long time ago. I knew that my thoughts weren't true. And I was like, how do I understand this better? So I want you to see the object of our reality, our circumstances, the people in our life are never the problem. They're never the bully. They're never the drama. This is the only place it can exist for you, right? And for every other person individually. If it's true for you, it's true for them. So we never can solve our problems here, okay? We got to solve them here, which is the thought line. So I hope you all got this because we're going to move on to solve some relationship problems right now. Oh, I've been talking a lot. Okay. Steven, how's my internet doing? Okay. All right. So before I show you the relationship problem models, and I'm showing you right now. Well, don't look at that yet. Okay. I am going to tell you some really hard truths right now that I'm guessing nobody else has had the heart to tell you yet. So once you're an adult, no one else is responsible for how you feel except for you. Okay. It's no one else's job, right? Not your clients, not your boss, not your spouse, not your parents or friends or coworkers to make you feel better. It is never their problem to fix. It is always yours. The problems you face never have to do with someone else's behavior, who someone else is being. They always have to do with how you are choosing to think about them. That is on you. Okay, this is radical responsibility here. The only place to solve relationship problems is in your mind, like we just said in the thought line of the model. You don't even need the other person to be in the room or to even be alive in order to solve it. I've had mortis, I don't know the word, but healing about someone. It's not even here anymore. Okay, this is pretty powerful. If you really want to solve all of your relationship problems, you will need to stop feeling like a victim and blaming other people for why you can't feel how you want to feel, for why you can't create what you want to create. You will have to stop doing that. This is some tough love. Sometimes it's hard to notice how we are doing this ourselves. I am speaking from experience. I have the most compassion for you. You'll have to start taking responsibility for how you're showing up to any dynamic, any relationship 100% of the time if you really want to solve your problems. And it's totally okay if you don't want to solve your problems, okay? But just don't lie to yourself about it. So, with all of that said, I do want to offer a little caveat because people can learn this and they go to the extremes. They ask about like, what about this? What about this? And so I'm not saying here that you should put up with abusive treatment. I'm not saying you should stay in relationships that you don't want to stay in, but I am saying that how you think about any relationship is what determines the kind of treatment you will allow. And it determines the kind of relationships you will choose, the people you'll choose. If someone is being abusive to you, then that means there is something in your model, something you are thinking that alludes to abuse being acceptable. And so we want to look at that with so much love, right? Not judgment, because we're human, right? If you didn't think that, that abuse wouldn't be in the relationship. And so that has to be addressed, right? This is part of that responsibility. And we're never saying that it's your fault. We're not victim blaming, but we are saying it's still your job to take responsibility for how you feel. That doesn't mean we agree with it. That doesn't mean we continue to put up with it. But I want to empower the person who might find themselves in that situation to just be aware enough to finally do something about it. And that's what this model offers, is that awareness, because we all have this power in us to change, this freedom to decide what to think. And if we really integrate that, build that skill, it works like math. Okay. Every single one of us can do it. So on that note, let's start with our first example problem. And so I'm going to kind of read this. I know it's hard to fit all these words on this thing back here. So the circumstance, we're putting only facts here. You get home, your spouse didn't take the trash out. You say to your spouse, you never do what I ask. You say something like, "Oh, I don't need this. This is, you just make some comments. I don't know. You put exactly what you say there, right? The words you say out loud. And then he'll say, I don't even care. He leaves the room and ignores you. Okay, so that's the facts. That's neutral. That's just reality. But let's look at what's going on in your perception of it. So your thought is, they are trying to hurt me. And that thought makes you feel angry. So when you're angry, you feel this like fight urge to say mean things to him, right? To try to get him to argue with you more. You leave the trash there until he takes it out. You try to think of ways to make him do it and to force him to do it, right? You want to control him so bad. You try to make him angry too because you don't like feeling angry. And now you think he should be punished for making you angry. You don't take the trash out. You don't try to understand him better. You don't connect. Okay. And so what is the result of that behavior? You're hurting you and him by not managing your mind here, by not managing your thoughts. And so once we have the model filled in, it's just time to question it and get curious. Because in that moment, our brain really believes the thought, he's trying to hurt me. Okay? It's seeing evidence everywhere for it. It's like an evidence finding machine. And it's like, no, yeah, he really is trying to hurt me. And so if we never take the time to ask ourselves if it's really true, we build so much emotional momentum behind that thought and that story. And the longer we wait to do something about it, to question it, the deeper that neural pathway becomes. And the more likely we are to repeat this scenario because it's just being delegated to our subconscious. We're practicing it so much, it becomes automatic. So we just start by asking, is it true? Is he really always trying to hurt you? If I took a record of everything he does in the day, would everything in that time frame be an intentional attempt to hurt you? Or is your brain lying to you here, right? Is this an untrue thought? So ding, ding, it's an untrue thought. Your brain is lying again. And so when you choose to believe he's only trying to hurt you, your brain then blocks out all the ways he has loved you or will love you in the future. And so this is the very moment where it also cuts you off from being able to love him because your brain has now identified him as a threat. Threat level midnight, right? Michael Scott style. He's the gold guy. Your brain is the gold guy. Oh no. Okay, stop it, Alicia. We can never love what we feel threatened by. Okay, that doesn't make sense. And when you make a neutral person, a person living in the object of your reality, a threat, you make that choice, you're not getting to love them like you probably would like to be doing. We want to love. And so we have to take ownership here. That's the first step. We have to see it's not him not taking the trash out that makes me feel angry. It's actually the way I'm choosing to interpret this reality that creates my anger. And so the trash not being taken out isn't what makes me say mean things and try to manipulate him, right? And when I'm not trying to understand him and I'm not trying to have compassion for him and I'm not loving him, I'm actually hurting both of us. In that moment, I'm making me angry and I'm trying to make him angry. So if this is a scenario you are familiar with, amazing. I hope it's resonating. And if it's not, then don't write this example off. I want you to find a similar situation in your life where you have felt big emotions being caused by someone in reality, and you've been believing an untrue thought and thinking it was the other person causing this emotion. So let this sink in. Okay. All right, we're gonna see what's next here. All right. Now in this model, we get home, it's the same circumstance, but now we've managed our thoughts here. So I want you to see the difference. This model is a bridge that we want to start building that connects us from our old neural pathways into the new ones we want to create. And so this takes practice. You are not entitled to your brain changing for you automatically without your effort. You have to actually practice the thoughts. And so circumstance is exactly the same, but look what happens when you practice thoughts for a while and you try it on and see what happens next. You practice the thought. My thoughts cause all of my emotions. You've been practicing that one often. You're like, yep, I'm looking everywhere, but still my thoughts cause all of my emotions. And so you start to feel curious or even self-sufficient. That's a great emotion. You start to feel self-sufficient. Like if I'm creating my emotions with my thoughts, then I'm sufficient enough to handle what I'm thinking in this moment. And so when you're in that curious place, you see the trash hasn't been taken out. This is what the difference is. Okay. So you notice your thoughts. That's the first thing you do. You notice they want to spin out in anger because that neural pathway isn't completely gone. And so you let yourself have this urge. You let yourself get mad without reacting to it, right? You're not projecting it immediately onto him. You're taking responsibility for feeling mad. You stop to process the emotion. You're questioning the thought like, I remember this one. I remember my brain wants to believe he's trying to hurt me, but that's not true. And I get to decide. And I don't want to feel angry tonight, right? I want to come home. I want to have a great night. And so I decide I don't want to worry about the trash. I take the trash out. No big deal. It takes 5 seconds. Then I ask him how his day was. Turns out he's had a hard day, right? And so I'm there to listen to him. I'm not making his day worse by yelling at him about the trash. He's telling me he's had a hard day. I help him through it. We connect. We grow closer together. The result is you have learned how to solve your relationship problem at the source, and you're reaping the benefits of it. You have connection now. You have closeness. And so I give my clients dozens of these intermediary models so they can practice this intentional thinking and rewiring their brain. And this practice is uncomfortable. You don't just arrive here perfectly on your first try, okay? Because again, change is so resisted in our brain, and it will try to dissuade us from giving us, it'll give us a heaping pile of negative emotion to keep us from doing it. It'll be like, no, keep the thought that he's hurting you. I don't want to change. I don't want to change. I don't want to change. And you just say, we're going to change. That thought is trash. Okay. Get it? Trash. Didn't plan that. Okay. So we have to remember negative emotion is harmless, and changing our thoughts is the most rewarding thing we could ever do for our lives and for our relationships. And so that temporary discomfort isn't a problem. It's worth it. We can do it. Not a big deal. So honestly, it's going to be uncomfortable either way. And I want you to think about that because you might be resistant still to this concept, but you're either out of control and frustrated and angry and also uncomfortable during that, or you're in control. You're at least trying, you're having your own back, you're learning, and you're uncomfortable. Either way, you're uncomfortable. So let's do one more example here. Eep. Okay, so let's look at the model. The fact line. Tina is a coworker, and she says, no, she's talking about someone. She comes up to you and she's like, she can't do anything right. She should be fired. I don't know why she still works here. She's so annoying. So you put down the exact words she's saying, right? And your thought about Tina coming up to you and venting all this stuff is, I can't stand when Tina gossips. And so that thought, I can't stand when Tina gossips, makes you feel frustrated. So what do you do when you feel frustrated? Well, you got to get that energy out. So you go to someone else and you gossip about Tina. You're like, Tina is so negative. I hate how she's so negative in the workplace. I wish she would stop complaining about everything to me, but she always just starts talking and doesn't stop. But I never say anything to her about it, right? That's something we do when we're frustrated is we don't do anything about it. We just complain. We expect her to just know that it's rude to do that and that she should just be more positive all the time. So look at what this thought is creating. This is the comedy of the model. When you think I can't stand when Tina gossips, you gossip about her gossip. This is a great model. I love models like these. They make me so happy. It's like that. It's really that image of like you pointing your finger and you got 4 pointed back at you. Okay. We think it's possible that someone else can be responsible for creating our frustration, but we end up doing and becoming that exact thing that we're frustrated with. We become the person we are blaming. We exhibit the same behavior. And this is usually the case in 99.99999999999 examples. Okay. So we're adding to an unpleasant circumstance, right? We don't have to disagree that complaining is annoying. We can just be like, yeah, it's an unpleasant circumstance. And we're adding to it with more unpleasantries. We're just stuck in this delusion of thinking that responding to this with an equal and opposite reaction of the same stuff will somehow solve the problem. Never will it do that. Never. If you want to solve the problem, you have to change your thoughts, okay? Every time. So in this case, we haven't questioned our thinking. We haven't decided how we want to show up and feel around this coworker. And so we're still blaming her for how we feel because we haven't done that work yet. We think it's her fault, but really it's our job to do those things. And so it's not Tina's fault, right? She's allowed to be an imperfect human. She's allowed to say words. She's allowed to complain, right? We're not the complaining police here. She isn't in charge of our mind. It's not her business to handle this. It's not her job to stop complaining so we can feel better. Okay. Again, in our delusion, we start to actually believe that we should be in charge of her mind. We do know what's best for her. She shouldn't complain. And that's like creepily fucked up. We don't know what's best for her. We have no idea how she should be acting. Half the time, we don't even know how we should be acting. And so Tina and everything she says and does for all of eternity is a part of reality. So in this example, I want you to substitute whatever your problem is, right? Whoever is involved, any people that are in your object of reality, which means they're all neutral, right? Until our brain comes along, our perception and our interpretation of them starts to direct how we think and feel. So reality is always neutral, but I don't mean to say that we should always feel neutral about reality. Okay, I want to reiterate this not only to my clients, but to anyone who's learning this tool. We have a giant spectrum of human emotion and we want to use the whole thing, right? I'm not saying you should live in a neutral, empty space your whole life. You want to use the good and the bad, the negative and the positive, the whole shebang. So if someone we love dies, we don't want to feel happy and neutral at that time. I promise you. We want to have access to sad. We want to grieve, right? But there are some emotions that serve us and some that don't. Okay, so we want to not choose emotions like frustration and anger because they don't serve us. We can let them be there, we can process them, but we don't stay here in this drama that doesn't serve us. So I'm not saying we should feel neutral about situations, but we can choose a negative emotion that serves us over one of these: anxiety, overwhelm, confusion. Those don't serve us. So we see now that it is not Tina saying words that makes us feel frustrated. It's not Tina saying words that forces us to then be negative back, like we're compelled by an energy force she's putting out. It's not what's happening. We are choosing to be negative and to feel frustrated because of the thought we're thinking in that moment. I can't stand when Tina gossips. That is what's creating it. And so we can do one of two things here. We can continue to feel like victims to our own brains and bodies and to Tina, or we can start to change our thoughts on purpose and do something about it. So by simply putting all of this into the model, taking 5 minutes out of your day and doing something like this, we can see what our thoughts are creating for us, right? I gossip about her gossip. When I think I can't stand Tina, can't stand what she's doing, I end up not being able to stand myself because I start being a negative person and I don't want to be that. I don't want to become that. So the very thing I want Tina to change about her, I'm doing now. But I haven't even figured out how to change it for myself. So how can I go and expect her to do it immediately for me to make me feel better? Talk about entitlement, huh? Talk about unrealistic expectations of a coworker. So when I say we're living in delusion, 99% of the time, I am not kidding. It's kind of freaky to me now with my awareness, with my skill level in this work now. When I see people who don't use thought work, who aren't choosing to use it, and they don't have these tools, it makes me feel a whole new level of gratitude. I'm like, holy shit, I am so happy I am in my brain because my brain knows these tools and I know how to navigate this stuff and I don't feel out of control like they do. And I am not jealous of their life, right? But I used to be that. I used to feel out of control. I used to be an anxious knot. But now I'm empowered and aware. So it's fun. It's an option for you if you'd like it. And so we have to check in with ourselves often. And I mean often. Like once a year is not enough for your mental health, friends. This is how I want to be showing up and feeling in this situation, in every situation. Or we start to pick our thoughts on purpose. So, is it true that I can't stand Tina when she gossips? Is it absolutely true? No. It's actually more true that I can stand her gossiping to me because when she does come to me and gossip, I continue to not do or say anything about it. I continue to not tell her that I want this boundary for her to stop just coming up to me and talking. And so I continue to silently put up with it day after day and I don't stand up for myself. Okay. I'm actually lying to her by pretending to be okay with it and not telling her the truth of that I don't like it. Okay. And that's not very kind to Tina. Now, is it? I don't know why I chose Tina. I have no idea. So, is it true that she's causing my frustration, or is it more true that I am causing my frustration? And I'll let you sit in those questions until the answer comes to you. So, if you stop to think about these questions, is it even humanly possible to cause another human being's emotions? Can she really come into my brain and fire off synapses? How did she learn that? We should probably tell science and NASA and the president. That's called mind control. And so, am I actually the person, the only person that has access to my brain and my synapses? Is that true? And you get to decide. This is the fun part. You don't have to think that you are the only person. You can think other people are controlling you, and I hope you have a blast with it. But as long as you feel empowered and aware, okay, that's all I care about. So we see, no, she can't cause our frustration. Impossible. And so frustration is caused by our thoughts. I hope that has sunk in. And as a side note, the model isn't here to ever invalidate our emotions or to tell us what we're feeling is wrong. Fuck no. Our emotions are a valid part of this experience. Honor your experience, but be totally responsible for it. Lovingly witness yourself in any emotional state, no matter what, as the creator of your emotion. And you're allowed to feel frustrated. You're allowed to feel shame. You're allowed to feel guilt. You're allowed to feel whatever, but you have a say in it. So just know that. So it's totally okay to feel that whenever it comes up, but we don't want to stay stuck there if that's not what we want. Okay. So one more, this is the last slide page thing. Okay. Let's look at the difference in that first model and this one. Again, the circumstance has not changed. Our object of reality doesn't need to change. This is all that changes. So Tina says words. She's just being who she is. I have this new thought that I've picked. I get to decide how I want to feel. And we've practiced it, right? This isn't just the first time and it magically syncs. And I mean SYNC, like NSYNC. Okay. And then when we practice that enough, we feel calm, or maybe we feel self-assured. We can assure ourselves that we believe the fuck out of that thought. And so whenever we're really feeling calm in our body, we're really regulating and creating that emotion intentionally, this is how we show up. We finally go up to Tina and we politely say, hey, I totally get that you want to vent, but if you wouldn't mind, just check with me before you start going off because I might not be up for it. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd really appreciate that. You tell Tina the truth. You protect your space and your time and your energy. Finally, finally showing up how you want to be showing up. You're taking responsibility for your thoughts and emotions. You're telling Tina the truth. You're seeing her humanity. You're not judging her anymore. You're just totally seeing her and not making it a problem. And then you have your own back. You're in integrity with who you really want to be when you've chosen this on purpose. And so in this model, we don't make Tina a problem. She's allowed to be herself. We control what we can, and we release our efforts where they won't work, right? We no longer spend time there. We plug in any relationship problem into this model. You will know how to solve for it. You'll know you solve for it in the thought line. And you have control over that thought line 100% of the time. And so this concept blew my mind. Like, I was like tweaking out for a week when I figured this all out. And I also had to wake up to a lot of the relationships I found myself participating in. And I realized this isn't the best I can do, honey. And I didn't want to play in these repetitive dramas anymore. I just didn't care. And so instead of going to try and change everyone and thinking they need to fit my new mold, I just kept taking responsibility. I just kept creating. I just kept being intentional. I wanted better for myself. I wanted quality relationships. I wanted vulnerable connection and honesty. I wanted fulfilling experiences with incredible humans. And guess what? I created that reality for me. I'm living in that result because of the thoughts I put here. Okay. Not because objective reality just did it all for me. I did this work to create what I have right now. And I own it because I'm proud of myself. Okay. So you don't create stuff like this overnight. Please know this mental and emotional work requires time. If you think about the amount of time it's taken you to build these shitty thought patterns, give yourself at least a quarter of that time to rewire it. Okay. And if you're not giving yourself that grace, you need a coach. Okay. So it's never a question of whether this is possible to change your thoughts. It is reality. It goes in the like thought work goes in the fact line. It's possible. It works for anyone who uses it and genuinely is willing and open to implement it. And we can change the automatic settings of our brain. That has been proven in science. So thank you. That was so much fun. It was very long today, but I loved it. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about life coaching if you want to stick around. Thank you. I appreciate you. Mwah. And so really quick, we're going to talk about life coaching. If you don't already know, life coaching is all about creating this part of the model, creating new results. First of all, you're looking at the ones you're currently creating, and then you plug in what you want to create. Right? It's using proven tools like this and thought methods to get you there. It's not about controlling the world outside of us, just like we've been talking about today. It's about controlling the way we choose to think and feel in any given moment. And we need help with this. Like, I am not kidding. I am a coach. I just taught you an hour-long thing, and I cannot wait for my one-on-one coaching session, right? Because we have human brains. And so building this skill of thought management until the new productive, helpful thoughts become our new baseline, we need to keep getting help. We need to keep working at it. We don't want to give up. We don't want to quit. We don't want to give into our brain being all lazy. And so when we notice that our current baseline is filled with our past trauma, with our pain, with so many flat out lies that aren't true, that's what's keeping us stuck. Right? All of those thoughts that are just delegated to our subconscious that we haven't started to change. So it is within this coaching relationship, right? Me and you, baby. And we are working together to keep you on track so you can actualize whatever you want to put here. And so this is the fun part. You can put anything you want in this model, and it does work like math if you put in the work. But I will tell you, our brain all on its own will stop us from creating what we want to put here. It will actually sabotage ourselves and convince us to quit because it can be a little asshole sometimes. And it tells us it's protecting us and it makes a really strong case, but it's actually just putting more of that suffering and untrue thoughts in our way of seeing things clearly. So I don't mean to knock the brain here. Our brain is so amazing. It's so intelligent, so capable. But if you haven't learned how to manage it, that is something you will need to learn if you want to use this model in the way that I've learned to use it. Okay. In order for it to work for you. Okay. So, by entering into a coaching relationship, which is the most exciting thing to do ever, you are quite literally ensuring yourself that you will arrive at the future you say you want. And in a mind blowing fashion, in that, right? There is magic involved in coaching. And because a coach will be managing your mind with you, they'll be doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And so, there's no escape route, right? Unless you quit and leave. It's kind of scary to hire a coach because it's basically guaranteeing that you will become who you want to become and you will actually get what it is you want to get in life. And I think more often than not, we are afraid of that. We like comfort, we like familiarity, we like settling. We are terrified of success. We are terrified of our own power. And so we resist this. Even though I'm promising you the world, I'm like, you can have whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. We're like, better not. I'd rather not. Let me just go sit on the couch and eat chips. And so we resist what we want. And I want you to just start noticing that. That's because a part of us is afraid because we have some thoughts in there that are like, I don't really deserve this. I don't think I'm good enough. What if I'm not worthy of what it is I want? Right? And so that's the kind of lying, stupid ass bullshit that we work through together. Okay. None of that here. Right. And so once you get the hang of this work, these tools, these processes, it is life changing in the best way. Not only do you change yourself, but everyone you touch, everyone that gets access to the value of your time and energy, they are going to improve too. Because this stuff doesn't lie. It comes from the inside out. And it is powerful. So you become the creator of your future. And there's nothing more exciting than that. There is no better privilege than that and being alive still. So if you want to discover what you create, you have to start practicing this skill, right? If you want to start finding out how amazing life can get. So coming from a person who has been doing this for years, right? I can promise you there's nothing you can't overcome here. It's always just a thought. The worst thing that can happen is a feeling in your body or a sentence in your mind. And it's not that scary once you learn how to combine these tools of thought work and processing emotions. You become unstoppable, my friend. You can do anything. So the only thing you have to be afraid of is how much time you are letting pass by not getting started on this work. Okay? This is an urgent message to everyone everywhere. Alert the troops. Not getting started on mastering this skill and putting in the work in your life, you are depriving yourself of fulfillment. You are keeping yourself away from magic. That breaks my heart. Please stop it. So, if you have a desire to do this shit together, go to my website, aliciaturnercoaching.com, and schedule your free consult. And we'll just start talking future possibilities together. It's one of my favorite things to do. All right. Also, if you only watch these and don't have me on Instagram, I have a podcast now. So if you want to check that out, it's on all the platforms. It's called Eureka with Alicia. Episodes come out every Wednesday. So listen, follow, review. I love you. All right, friends. Peace out.